is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hello, Dream Drivers. Welcome to episode 35 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. And today, our guest is the fabulous Maya Elious. Maya's a branding strategist, coach, and speaker that teaches creative business owners how to create magnetic content and irresistible products that will get them noticed and paid online. And she's also the content curator behind MayaElious.com, where she shares blog posts and resources for solopreneurs looking for clarity and strategy to help them build a profitable brand. And on today's podcast, we really dive deep into the power of telling your story and why your story is your power. I think a lot of times as dream drivers, we often don't put emphasis a lot on our personal stories, and we're also missing on really great ways for us to connect with our audience. So Maya talks all about how we can find clarity in our story and also how we can use that story to build our brand and tribe. Some of the other things that we talk about in today's podcast is, why Maya decided to drop out of college and launch her business full time, how she overcame fear of her parents' expectations, the education and tools she invested in early on in her career. I love this episode with Maya because I think she was just keeping it 100% real about the things that she had to overcome and how she was able to build a successful brand that is able to help other people. So I know that you guys are going to enjoy this episode, but before we dive in, I just have a few housekeeping notes. If you're listening in on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, or on the web, wherever, please make sure you are subscribing to us so that you can get updates each week when we release a new episode. And if you are specifically listening on iTunes, please leave us a review. I love going into the iTunes podcast app and just reading everyone's review. So I just appreciate it so much, and we want more. Tell people what you love about each episode. If you want to join our Dreams and Drive community, all you have to do is go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. And last but not least, if you want today's show notes with Maya, go to dreamsanddrive.com and click on episode 35. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Make sure you follow us and say hello on social. We are everywhere across the board at Dreams and Drive. I know you guys are waiting for me to stop chatting so that you can listen to Maya's episode, so let's get to it. Hi Maya, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Dreams and Drive.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
I've been a fan of yours since forever. I remember when you had your old branding on your site, even when you had different pricing and stuff like that. So I've definitely been a fan of your content for a while, and I don't even actually remember how I stumbled upon you. I think I was on somebody's site, maybe by Regina or something, and I just saw your content somewhere, and I became you became one of my mentors in my head on the web.
That is so awesome. I always crack up when people are like, I've been following you for so long. I'm like, that's so embarrassing.
But it's also true. It's you never know who's following you. I get the same thing too, where people are like, oh, I've loved your stuff since 2013. I was like, oh, that stuff was crap. But if you like that,
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you never know who's watching. It's always crazy. And then when people let you know, it's just kind of a reminder to kind of be on your game sometimes.
Yep, definitely. So let's get our Dreams and Drive interview started. And as you know, I love to ask all our guests this first question of what inspired you as a child. I always think it's, cool to go back into those early days and think about who was Maya, the kid? Describe her to me.
Oh my gosh, Maya the kid was so fun. I lived in Pennsylvania for the majority of my life. So I grew up a little bit in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. I went to elementary school in Philly and I lived in this neighborhood where I pretty much like ran the neighborhood. It was so fun. And we used to like stay outside all day in the sun. I would come home and be so dark, my nose would be peeling because I just would stay outside all day, go to the playground, go to the pool. Just so exciting. I just loved being outside. And I also used to really like drawing a lot of pictures a lot. So I was just really playful. I liked being around people. I liked kind of like being the leader and being in groups, and then also doing things that I felt were creative, like drawing.
That's interesting that you said you liked that and that you also liked, drawing pictures because if you think about your path onwards, you ended up being a graphic designer and now you work with other individuals helping them build their brand. So I guess that all kind of, there was a reason why you were like that as a young child.
Yeah, it's crazy now because I can't draw to save my life. And I'm like so impressed with like actual artists that can paint and sketch and draw. But yeah, I've always just kind of been fascinated with just creating something out of using like one tool, like a pencil or something like that.
So would you say that when you were younger, you had, you ever pictured that you would one day become an entrepreneur?
I definitely did not think I would become an entrepreneur, especially just because my parents are from Africa. So in their mind, they're like, yeah, she's going to go to college. She's going to have a good, successful career. So I just always pictured myself working for somebody else.
I love that you say that. And a lot of the guests that I have on the show, we come from immigrant families. So my parents are Jamaican. So I grew up in a Caribbean household where you have to become like a doctor, a lawyer, or something like that.
Yeah.
And like I went to school and I studied sociology, and my parents were so devastated. They were like, "Are you going to be a social worker?" I'm like, "No, that's not what sociology is."
That's actually not how that works.
But like there's these certain expectations that you think you have to live up to, even if you have like a different calling or something that a different plan for your life, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And then because a lot of us are, first generation Americans, like our parents were fed the American dream, which is to work for somebody else, essentially. So, of course, in their mind, they're like, yes, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being a high ranking person, but still working for somebody is essentially the American dream.
So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your story and what prompted you to drop out of college and pursue your love of was it graphic design? You launched your graphic design business, your design agency, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So actually, like I was saying, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and when I graduated high school, my dad had gotten a job in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I ended up moving to Charlotte with my parents. I was supposed to go to Penn State, but my mom was like totally freaked out about me not being in the same state as them. So I moved to Charlotte.
Typical.
Yeah, exactly. The real truth is, to be completely transparent, is that I used to drink a lot in high school, and she was like, "You're going to be an alcoholic if we leave you." I was like,
Wow, I would never have guessed that, Maya. Oh.
so it's like I drank a lot in high school. I was just around a lot of like wild kids. My mom was like so petrified that I was going to just like be like a bum and a complete drunk. So yeah, so I moved to Charlotte when I was 18, and I went to a community college since um, I decided that I was going to live there late. So it was too late for me to enroll in a university. And to be honest, like I was so nervous about going to a community college just because, again, since my parents put such a high regard on education, it was kind of like, oh, you're going to a community college. So I kind of felt bad. Like all my friends were going to university. But if I had not gone to that community college, I would probably be working for somebody else now, because it was there that I met a guy who asked me if I knew how to design custom MySpace pages. And I was like, yeah, I know how to. And he paid me $50. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can get paid to do stuff that I already do for fun. This is so cool. So that was definitely really, really interesting. He helped me learn a little bit about Photoshop. And that was just really, really awesome. It was a great learning experience. And then I had connected with another guy through MySpace who was like a modeling manager for a lot of the girls on the reality. TV shows on VH1, like For the Love of Ray J and Real Chance of Love and all those shows. So those girls were like my clients for like a year. It was really, really interesting. And then eventually I really learned kind of like how to turn it into a business. Fast forward like a few years later, 22 years old. So this is 4 years later. I was like, college is just like so draining. I was in university. I wasn't doing well at all because I was just like a small fish in a big ocean, really, because you're just like a number when you're at
Mm-hmm.
big universities. So I was like, I'm really not feeling this. I'm definitely the type of person that likes to learn in a small group. And that's probably also why I like coaching and doing workshops and trainings in small groups, because that's how I just learn and connect with people better. So I was like, I definitely don't want to do this. But I stayed for like a year and a half, even after I decided I didn't want to do it, because I was so scared of the response that I was going to get from my dad. I just like, I was just so scared of my parents. It was really weird. It's not like they were
That's
like,
not weird. That's not weird. I am too.
yeah. Right. It's like they're really nice people. They're not killers, but it's like they set this level of expectation that you really feel like you have to reach. But yeah, so I was just really scared. And then, just like a lot of like sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety, trying to really just balance going to school and actually doing well, and then trying to like build a business. Like I would be in class, like designing flyers and stuff like that. So I eventually dropped out when I was going to go to Vegas for a business trip. And so I reached out to all of my instructors. I was like, hey, I have to go out of town. If we have any assignments coming up, can I take them when I get back, or can I take them prior to, just so I can get it out of the way? And my instructor in my matrices class, which is like, what is matrices? Like, why
I
is
don't
that even a
know.
thing? Right,
What is
exactly.
it?
It's some type of math class that I was failing. So
Okay.
he was like, no, you just have to fail the test and hope that you ace the next test to replace the one that you failed. So I was just like, okay, you guys like literally just don't care. And I put in effort trying to, accommodate that I have to go out of town. So I was like, this is just not for me. Like I never went back after that. I like went to Vegas, had a good time, came back, and then eventually told my parents right before Thanksgiving.
So what did that feel like when you told your parents, and like, what were the next things you did after that?
Oh my gosh, it was so scary. I remember that I was at this store in Charlotte called Food Lion, and I was like trying to get groceries because I was gonna make some like tacos for dinner or something like that. So I was like, let me just call mom and let her know, because it's been weeks since I haven't gone to college and they keep asking me about it. So I called her and I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. I was just very like vague. And she's like, what do you mean? She was like freaking out. She was literally like yelling and crying. And she's like, there's people that would die for an education and stuff like that. And I was just so frustrated that she wasn't even at all understanding. And she was just putting a lot of blame on me, like I'm killing people for not going to school. To me, she blew it out of proportion. I was just so frustrated. And I was just like yelling back at her, and I hung up, and like we literally didn't talk for like almost a week until I called and apologized for yelling at her. So it was a really, really hard time.
I can imagine, there are a lot of things like even on my end, like our parents just, I'm sure her reaction wasn't one, it wasn't like ill intention. She just had these expectations, and I know, like, I've worked so hard for you, Maya, and this is what you're doing to me. This is probably what she was thinking, but
Mhm.
you guys were able to work it out. I'm hoping.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mhm.
fortunately, like during that time, like my boyfriend's dad is a retired pastor and counselor. So it's like I was able to talk to him, which I think was it's just so important for creatives to have somebody to be able to talk to without any bias, some type of like counseling or therapy or something like that, because it's a lot to deal with emotionally when the people that you want to support you the most are the furthest people to support you. So that was definitely tough. But then eventually I apologized. And then my boyfriend and I went there and visited them in Virginia for Thanksgiving. So they didn't hate me. I wish I could say they got over it, but like literally like 6 months ago, my dad was like, hey, just checking in to see if you've ever thought about persevering to go back to college. I'm like,
Wait,
okay.
really?
Yeah, I'm so serious. But what I think it is because It was like graduation season. So it wasn't even 6 months ago. It was literally like 3 months ago, which is just crazy. It blows my mind because I dropped out 3 years ago. But yeah, like 3 months ago, it's like graduation season. So he's probably like feeling that like, oh, my daughters didn't graduate. So he's like, hey, just reaching out to see if you've thought about persevering to continue or to finish college. And I was like, it's not a matter of perseverance. I'm not a stranger to hard work. It just doesn't serve my purpose.
And I think I was reading one of your blog posts where you talk about how you went the unconventional education route and how you invested in other types of tools that, you were able to leverage that really taught you something, right? Like courses and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think what year was it? Maybe 2013 or early 2014. I invested in my first course. It was like $200 or $300. It was the best investment ever. It was still when I was doing like web and graphic design. It was really just teaching you how to deal with clients and price at a rate that you feel comfortable with and create contracts. And like that was really when I felt like I was running a business and I was making actual money. So investing in education is just so important for running a business.
So let's talk about your early years running Brandwich. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, so it was Brandwich, and even before that, it was Elite Graphics, which is just the worst name ever.
I did see that somewhere when I was doing some research for this interview. I was like, "Whoa, that's an interesting plain name."
So basic.
So let's talk about those early years. What do you think you really learned from running, Brandwich and Elite Graphics that you have then now used as you are building the Maya Elious brand?
I definitely learned number one how to not be corny and name things Elite Graphics.
You got to start somewhere.
You definitely have to start somewhere, man. If without Elite Graphics, there would be no Maya Elias brand. So I definitely appreciate my humble beginnings. But definitely business wise, really just learning how to work with people one on one and learning how to um, price myself accordingly, but then also meet those expectations of what I'm charging people. So I went from charging people like $400 or $500 here and there to maybe like $1,500 to $2,500, which is definitely a hike. I tripled and quadrupled my price. So I learned how to really meet that value. It wasn't just about like delivering a website or delivering a graphic, but creating an entire experience for your customer.
Okay. And then let's talk about that shift. So I know you were doing a lot of Brandwich work and you realized that you're not that you didn't enjoy it as much anymore, but that you found that you were better doing coaching and branding work. So how did that transition happen?
That transition happened a year ago. So in last July, 2015 is when I like fully made the transition. I had started thinking about it end of March, April-ish, because I was like, I'm getting kind of burnt out working with clients one-on-one. Like I'm hitting a plateau with my income because there's only so many hours in a day. Like I can only take on so many clients. And the frustrating part was that, my clients would be investing this money, like, $1,000, $2,000, but they weren't getting results because they didn't really understand the strategy of business. So it was like they wanted to pay for a pretty website, but the things that they had on their website wasn't strategic. It wasn't bringing them an income that really met what they had invested in. So I would look at that, and then when I would have conversations with them, like we would just be on the phone for a long time. They would be asking for my advice. And I was like, no, you're not paying me to be sitting on the phone and having these conversations. So I was like, I think it's really important that I see what consulting is like. So then I started consulting. I think I was charging maybe like $125 for like 90 minutes. So I was just like, oh, let me see what this is like. And I really, really enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed helping people come up with a strategy that was actually going to make them money.
How did you manage that consulting in the beginning? Like, was it just like you dived in and just gave people results, or did you have some kind of program that you were walking people through in those early days?
Oh no, I had no idea what I was doing. I never know what I'm doing, even to this day. Like I just come up with ideas and I'm like, let me just try it and I can make it better from there. So I started it and I used to get so nervous before calls because I was like, oh my gosh, I hope they think it's worth it. Like I hope my advice is really worth what I'm charging. So I would literally just have conversations with people. And then I was like, as I went along, I was like, okay, well, now I can structure it like this. So I had like different segments. So we would talk about like their design, then we would talk about their messaging, and then we would talk about their strategy. And then as I went on, like things got better. Like I just became so natural at giving advice. And then I also got better as a business owner. So as I got better as a business owner, I was able to give better advice and then charge more.
I think that is so real, especially for a lot of creatives listening in. It's like, that building confidence to charge the prices and just knowing that you have the expertise that people are willing to pay and listen to you for. That's something that a lot of us sometimes we fear and we just don't know how to get through. So what would be your tips for someone who's struggling with that whole with figuring out what their pricing is and just building that confidence in their work and their expertise?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that it's really important for us to see the results that we're getting people or the results that we at least intend to give people because that really measures the value that we actually give them. One of the most important things that I learned was value based pricing. So, what is the value that people are going to receive after making this investment? And the value doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, although it is easier to measure it when it is that way. But an example would be like a photographer charging $5,000 for wedding photography versus a couple paying a photographer $500, right? But again, it's all about the experience and it's also about just being responsible. So if you hire somebody that's $500 and they're a complete amateur and they don't get your pictures back to you until 6 months after your wedding, or they lose the SD card or something goes wrong, that's the most important day of your life. So you paid $500 because you wanted to be cheap, but now you don't have your pictures. And it's like you would pay any amount of money to make sure that you actually receive what you were promised. So just understanding how valuable your promise is, relating it back to what I do, like I know people will make money after they work with me. So it's like you're going to make this investment, but you're also going to make the money back.
That's a good way to look at it. You know that people will make money by working with you. And have you ever had anyone who hasn't made any money? And how did you deal with them?
I've never had anybody come to me and say, Maya, I didn't make the money. And a lot of my coaching sessions aren't even specifically just about making money. A lot of them are just about clarity. A lot of people can't even move forward to start a business because they are confused. So even if it's like they don't directly make the income back, they're able to at least start their business so they can at least one day make money because I help them with the setup and the clarity and just kind of eliminating that confusion.
So I want to get back to that, but before I lose the thought, are you somebody who would encourage a new entrepreneur to do it for free in the beginning to gain experience, or do you think that you should always charge something even if you're just starting out?
I think you should always charge something. Just because you're new doesn't mean that you're not valuable. So I think it's really important to always know your worth. Don't be afraid to charge people. I don't really believe in free. Like, I think even at the very least, you should be bartering with people.
Mm-hmm. And how would that look like? Could you give an example of what that could look like?
Yeah, so bartering, so it's basically just swapping services. So maybe if I wanted to work with like a fitness coach and he would train me for 3 months and then I would give him like four coaching calls and then make sure that the barter is actually equal. So depending on what you actually want to charge compared to what they actually charge, make sure that it's equal so you're not giving them more than what they're giving you.
I love that advice. That's something that, I think I wish I would have done that when I first started out. So I did a lot of like freelance stuff when I was in college and I really didn't know what I was doing, as you said. And I was just like, hey, I'll do it for free. And then it was hard for me once I realized my value to then convince the person that I was working with that she needed to charge me more. So I ended up having to just dissolve the relationship and just start new with the new client because like that wasn't going anywhere. It was really awkward actually.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. People don't want to pay for something that was once free. It doesn't make sense in their mind. And I mean, it really doesn't make sense. Like if something was free and then now it's not free, you're going to just go look for the same thing elsewhere at where it's free.
So let's go back to what you were talking about, clarity, because I think a lot of our dream drivers listening in definitely need this advice and could really benefit from hearing you talk about what clarity means. So what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that you've seen your clients come to you with, when they're launching their business? And let's relate this to, them not having a sense of clarity.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest mistake or like even the biggest myth is that people feel like their story isn't enough. Like people just don't know why they are valuable. And it's so crazy because pretty much every single time I do a clarity call, somebody cries. It's really funny. Well, not funny like in a bad way, but
Mm-hmm.
they cry because they're just like, it's like a sense of relief, like, wow, I really am important. I really am valuable. And that means a lot to me, just people allowing me in their life and really just helping them figure out why they're here, what they're supposed to be doing, why they're valuable, why they can actually charge for their services, how they can tell their story. I think that's just so important. A lot of people downplay all of the experiences that they have been through. And when we just sit and have a conversation about it, and I'm like, this is why this happened to you. This is why your story matters. It's just kind of like a groundbreaking moment for them.
So are you saying that people need to they need to confront their stories before they're able to really build anything?
If you want to build a brand, it's really important to confront your story because that's what a brand essentially is. It's just storytelling and getting people to know who you truly are. And who you are now is based on your past experiences. It's based on your story. So if you're interested in actually building an authentic brand, you do need to be able to confront your story. Now, before you know your story, you can definitely provide a service, but your story is what's going to make that connection with an authentic tribe.
All right, so let's do a little exercise. So let's pretend I'm like Raina, a photographer, right? And I
Mhm.
come to you and I say, "Hey Maya, I want to do animal portraits." Right? That's really random. Like I love animals. I grew up with a lot of homeless dogs that my parents took in. Like, what would you tell me are the first things I need to do with my story to then that would help me build that animal photography business?
I would definitely talk about, assuming that this was like a real story, I would definitely
It's
talk
not.
about,
I hate
yeah.
dogs.
Oh my gosh. I would definitely talk about how you grew up around dogs that were like abused and homeless and what you did to make a change with those dogs and how you made those dogs feel good or maybe how like you gave those dogs to like families that would make them feel good and you would always take photographs of the dog and the family and that was kind of just like a memory that the family would always want to have. So then that would connect with your photography business if your niche was specifically taking pictures of like abused dogs that would be going to a new family. That's how you would tie in the story.
All right, that's that. Thank you. Thank anyone listening in. If you are a animal photographer, that is for you. So one of the things that I love that you talk about in a lot of your blog posts and on your website and across social media is the importance of knowing who you are speaking to. And this is something that I've even seen with creatives that I've worked with too, is a lot of people think they know what their customers want and then they make a product based upon what they think people want, right?
Yeah.
How do you, or what are your tips for helping your clients identify who their target customer is and figuring out what they want?
Um, my number one tip is usually actually just engaging with your audience. But before you actually have an audience, because most people are like, well, I don't have an audience yet. So how could I engage with them? You want to think about the type of person you actually do want to work with. You need to actually create an image in your head of what this person looks like, what they do on the weekends, what do they wear, what's their favorite drink, what's their favorite TV show. Like this needs to be an actual person to you. And once you start writing sales copy, you start creating products, you start creating content specifically for that person that you imagine, you're going to actually start attracting real people like that.
That is priceless because a lot of people just don't realize that they have to do it. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that requires work, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of people, I've witnessed people who have come to me who said, hey, I have this idea for a business, can you help me, or help me with marketing, right? But they don't realize that they then have to do the work that involves that
Right.
that is involved with it. Have you ever had that experience where people have this idea that they want to be entrepreneurs but they don't want to do the work?
Yeah, every day. Yeah, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Nobody wants to do the work. There's a small amount of people who are really willing to do the work. And I think it's because even people like me, like sometimes we make it look easy because nobody really gets to see fully behind the scenes. So people are like, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make a bunch of money. I want to do XYZ. And then you tell them what the work is. And they're like, no, I don't have to do that. I saw somebody else be successful without doing that. And it's like, no, you didn't. You just didn't see the behind the scenes of it. So there's definitely a lot of work that goes into it. I don't understand how people want to market without doing market research, which is essentially figuring out who your customer is and what they really want. Like, girl, how do you think a business works? But again, it's because they see people consistently promoting, but they don't even look at it as promoting. They're just like, oh, it's just a hair company. And because it's a hair company, it's going to be successful. Like, no, you don't see what these people do behind the scenes.
I think social media has definitely made, I think there's even like an Instagram entrepreneur. You know how there's like Instagram makeup artists and
Right.
Instagram stylists? There's like that Instagram entrepreneur where all you see is success and you don't actually see them putting in the work, or they may not actually be the ones putting in the work, but they're the
Hmm.
face of the brand. So that is so, so, so real.
I know. I'm not even mad at the hustle. I'm like, listen, if you know how to work Instagram and get your coins, by all means do it. But those people are still putting in work, whether they're like
Hmm.
doing makeup videos every day, but they're at least consistently promoting themselves, which a lot of people like drop the ball on. Like, how are you trying to make money consistently, but you're promoting every once in a while? That doesn't even make any sense.
That's so true. And when I meant Instagram makeup artists, I meant the ones that just post on Instagram all day and they're actually not good at it. Like, you know how like like they're like, oh yeah, let me do your makeup, but then you actually book them, they're like, ooh, they can't do it. Okay, so what would you say your typical day is? So we talked a lot about the hustle that goes into being an entrepreneur. What does your day look like, and who's on your team helping you?
Okay, well, a typical work day. My days are just so different. I'm always growing so quickly that I'm always just trying to figure out what I should be doing next to kind of just keep up with my ideas. The one thing that is consistent is team calls on Tuesday mornings at 11. My team consists of a design assistant, a social media manager, my editor and copywriter, and my administrative assistant. So my days really depend on which projects I'm going to be launching. So if I'm going to be launching a course, then for like 45 days, I'm kind of like planning out the promo for it. I'm creating the content for it. I'm writing the email funnels for it, things like that. If I'm not in the season of launching, I'm in the season of just trying to build my brand and just getting people to know me. So I'm on Periscope a lot. I'm on social media a lot, just having conversations with people and kind of just getting a gauge for what it is that people are struggling with so I know what to launch in the next season.
And to date, what do you think, or not what do you think, what has been your most profitable product or service that you've offered?
Definitely an online course. So either my beginner course, Blogademics, or my bigger course, Master Your Market. One is priced at $497, and the other is priced at $997. So those two have definitely been my biggest like launch successes.
Okay. And do you put the most time into those courses out of all the other services that you provide?
Yeah, those are definitely the most time consuming. But the reason I love creating content and products, it's because you literally just have to spend the time up front and do it once. And then when you spend the time to sell it again, it's not as much work because it's already done. So you're just like tweaking a couple of things here and there.
Okay. I definitely get what you mean with that. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Maya, and I think you're like in my head, you're like this personal branding goddess, right? A lot of people, I think your brand is definitely part of your business. So definitely your business is Maya Elious, but that's also your brand too. So what would
Mhm.
you give to someone? What advice would you give to someone just starting out who doesn't know what steps they should be taking to build that personal brand?
Um, I think again, just to build your personal brand, you really need to understand your story. Like, why is it that you're even doing this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is this worth your energy? Why is this worth your time? Why is this worth your money? It just always goes back to your why, because if you don't know what your why is, you're really not going to be able to make a connection with your audience. Like, if I don't trust you and have an emotional connection with you, I'm most likely not going to buy from you, especially because a lot of these industries are so saturated. Like, there's a million business blogging and branding coaches out there. People don't just hire me because I'm great at what I do. People hire me because they have a connection to me and they have a connection to my story. So if you want to build a brand that's successful, you need to figure out what your story is and how it's going to connect with the people that you want to attract.
What brand now, or who, how should I say this? What story of a brand that's out there now really speaks to you?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let's see. Who have I invested in recently? So I have to. Hmm. Let me think on this one.
You know what's funny? I've been secretly obsessed with YouTube videos. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe it's just that point in my life where I do you know Jamie and Nix and like Patricia Bright and like those people?
Mm-mm.
They're like these YouTube vloggers that they both just had babies and they're married and all this stuff. And I just watch their videos all the time because like, oh my god, one day I want to be married and have a little baby. And it's like their story of kind of like they started out, they had nothing, and then they built this empire together, and now they have a family. Like to me, that's been the story that's been resonating with me as of late. So that's just a brand. I also liked Chobani yogurt. This is gonna be so. This is so random, but I think they're sponsoring the Olympics, or they're doing something with Olympic promo, and they've been featuring a lot of athletes who
Mm-hmm.
eat their yogurt, and they've been telling their backstory. So
Yeah.
that has definitely been something that has inspired me as of late when it comes to stories and brand telling. If I want to think of a person, did you think of yours yet?
I'm still over here thinking, I'm over here thinking like, damn, I don't watch TV, so I can't even think of a brand, like a big brand. I mean, just to kind of like make this a total cop out, I mean, I could say like Beyonce as far as like music, because we've all been watching her
Mm-hmm.
for years now. Like everybody is familiar with her brand and like where she's come from and how much she's progressed. I love watching her just like as an inspiration to launching, consistently putting out excellent content. Like I always like to compare what she's doing with how bloggers can really succeed out here.
Yes, Beyonce is the branding queen. Like she's really the
Yeah.
queen bee of branding.
Right.
And her team is so tight. Like I think about it, like she has the most loyal team. If you think like
Oh yeah, absolutely.
nothing gets out.
It doesn't. And I think her team probably can't afford to let anything get out because the type of lawsuits that would be against them.
Yeah, they would just need to like move to the middle of nowhere if that
Yeah.
happened.
Exactly. And actually, another piece of advice that I want to give out for anybody that's like listening to this and like, I don't have like that one story. People connect with you through like your everyday stories. And I think I did like a Periscope on this. Like, tell a story every single day. Like, just tell a story about what your day is like, or look at an object and create a story from it. So, the example that I gave was like, I could take a picture of my water bottle, put it on Instagram, and then come up with a story on how I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm drinking more water and what my results were with it. So just create a story out of your everyday life. It doesn't have to be this big story on how you were poor and used to sleep in your car and now you are a success or anything crazy like that.
I love that you said that because I think I've even been struggling with the Instagram caption. Like, what is it supposed to be? Like, I posted a picture earlier of like me wearing my natural hair, and I copped out to just put a comment that said "chasing joy." Like, but that's not really that's not really
Yeah.
the
That's
story that goes with it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I was about to say people always put up like these meaningless captions like, "Girl, what are you talking about?" But then it could have been, a story about your natural hair journey.
Yeah, that's true. You know who I think is the queen of Instagram captions to me? I love my leaks caption. She always has something inspiring to say in her caption. My leak teal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love my
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she's just always inspiring on like any platform.
Yeah, she's another one of those mentor in my heads that I've been following for a long time.
Yeah, she's so cool.
So, what kind of challenges are you facing? I think you've seen a lot of success since you've decided to quit and launch and do you. But what are some of the day to day challenges that you're facing now, Maya?
The day-to-day challenge for me, and I think every creative goes through this, is just deciding what you want to do. Because it's just there's so many ideas in my head, there's so many different strategies and roads that I could take to become successful, but it's just a matter of deciding and then executing. So it's like I'm pretty much like confused every day because I'm like, well, I could do this or I could do this. And then it's like I have a team that relies on me to give them direction,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what's next. So I think just the biggest challenge is just not only making a decision, but just praying that I'm actually making the right decision and making sure that I'm consistently walking in my purpose instead of just doing things because I think they're a good idea.
Have you ever taken a personality test?
Like those ones that like give you the letters of what you are.
Yeah.
Yes, I've taken a bunch of them and then I always forget the results because I was like, I don't know what they
Uh,
mean.
okay. I was gonna ask you what's your personality type because when you said that you're always thinking of what you should do next, that reminded me of myself.
Mhm.
I'm a ENFJ. Basically, it's like I'm an idea person, so I have a hard time. Like I can tell you 1,000 ideas like about what I should be doing. Then my problem is actually planning them out. Do you have that issue too, or are you a good planner?
I'm definitely a good planner and I'm really big on execution.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
think I don't know, is I one of the letters? I feel like somebody
Yeah.
told me I was a strong I.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that planning part is just like, I wish I had a team right now that, I could just spew them ideas and then they structure it for me, then I go back and fill it in because that's always been my my weak point.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm definitely the one always structuring everything and creating templates that we can use over and over.
So I have a question. I know many people who listening in who also follow you may want to ask you this too, but how is it or how do you handle also having a sister who's in this space? She's not necessarily in the personal branding like I wouldn't say well, to me I think she's kind of branding too, but I don't think she would describe herself as like a personal branding strategist as you are. But how do you deal with having a sister who's also in the blogger working with bloggers in this space? Like, is it fun? Is it competitive at times?
It's definitely both of those things. She and I are both very competitive. We're both Geminis, so we're same in that aspect. But it's like a healthy competition where she'll be like, "So, how much did you make from your webinar?" And then I'll tell her, and she'll be like, "Oh, that's so good." Like she cheers me on, but then like she's gonna want to do better. So we're always trying to one up each other, but it really just helps us work harder. It's definitely really interesting, especially because she just started doing this full time when she lost her job last year. Um, and so it's been really cool because we've grown closer because I've been able to give her advice and then also learn some things from her. So it's competitive and it's fun and it's really just like a cool natural business relationship. But then it's my sister too. So it's like we're just like any other sisters that have a good relationship, but sometimes may not agree, but then we're still cheering for each other.
Yeah, and you definitely now have a partner when your dad asks you again, so when are you going to go back to college?
Oh my gosh. They literally don't even care about Maddie because she has the baby now. So they're like, girl, you could go be homeless. Just bring our granddaughter over to us.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So, what is the scariest part of, being an entrepreneur for you?
The scariest part is for me, again, just making sure I'm making the right decisions. I'm just so intentional about everything I do. I am really big on just making sure that I'm pleasing God and working in my purpose. So I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. It's so easy to get caught up in like worldly things. It's so easy to get an ego when you make money or when your numbers go up on social media. So it's scary to think that I could kind of slip into like this ego trip and become somebody that I'm not meant to be.
That is scary. And I think sometimes that can creep up on you and you don't even realize you're not you, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I'm just like, I'll do something or like I'll have a thought that's like so egotistical and I'll be like, girl, where did that come from? And then like the next day, like I'll read a devotion that'll say something like, remember that, everything you have is because of God. It has nothing to do with your hard work. And I'm like, thank you for that reminder because I don't want to become that person. Like I know I'm here on earth to serve people. So for me to have an ego is just going in the complete opposite direction.
I love that you said like you're here on this earth to serve people, and a lot of our dream drivers may be struggling to find their calling and struggling to find what that special thing about them is. Do you have any tips or any words of encouragement for those who may be in that position?
Yeah, definitely. And then this is something I always talk about on my clarity calls, just figuring out your story, figuring out what your purpose is. If you've been through any type of struggle, which a lot of us go through as creatives. So, for example, like my struggle was, just dealing with two African parents who expected me to go to college and then dropping out and then still wanting to feel loved. You're always going to best connect with people who are going through that same struggle and you want to help them kind of navigate that transition of their life. So if you've ever been through something, you're most likely going to connect with people who were where you once were a few years ago.
I like that. And how do you stay consistent, or how do what keeps you going on those days when you just feel like giving up?
I definitely think just having the right people around me. I have creative friends that I can just reach out to. I'm always like in my iMessages, like talking to one of like my blogger friends. And it's just really important having that motivational team that's going to back you up. Like, I wish I could be the type of person that's like, my purpose keeps me going. But realistically, it doesn't. I'm like, no, F this purpose. I want to go sit in my bed and watch Hulu all day and order a pizza. But when I have like friends that I reach out to and I'm like, girl, I don't feel like doing any work today. And they'll be like, girl, get up and go do some work. And then I go do it. So
I love that. And that's just so true. And I think that that's an important part too of building and being a dream driver is that you have to also build your network and you have to reach out to people. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, and you might have this when you're talking with people who are on your clarity calls, is they're scared of that. They're scared of reaching out and just telling people that this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do. But once you actually do, you'll see that people will be receptive to you and they'll want to help you. So that's something that I tell a lot of people who come to me like, you just have to get out there and just be courageous.
yeah, absolutely. Again, people connect to stories. So if you're transparent and you kind of just put your ideas out there into the world, somebody's going to catch it and want to make that connection with you.
Mm-hmm. I have a little freebie question that I want to ask you. Um, So social media, I think it's something that a lot of us are, it's a hot topic now. If you want to be a creative, you know that you need to have a great following. What tips would you give to an aspiring creative entrepreneur and how they can use social media to build their brand and monetize?
Um, I really honestly think that every platform is different. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for me to give a specific response to somewhat of a vague question. Not that it's a
Instagram.
yeah, okay. So Instagram. Definitely posting consistently, making sure that you have quality photos, telling a story with your photo. Like if you like how you were mentioning your caption, like if you post just a random picture and you have a caption that doesn't really make a connection, people are going to just scroll by it. But then if you put a caption that tells a story and then you have a call to action, just asking people to do something or asking people to share their own story, then that's how you're going to get that engagement. And then also promoting your stuff on there every once in a while, and then even telling a story about that. So today I posted a photo of my most recent product, the product planner workbook. And I was talking about how one of my clients was saying that she loves how the products I sell, I actually use in my business, and just giving a backstory on working with clients and my products. And then I was like, if you go buy these two products right now, the coupon code is fried chicken because I'm going to be, I was like, I'm vegan for a week and I'm missing chicken. So that's the coupon code, and then made sales off of that. So just making sure that you're being intentional about what you're sharing with people.
What do you think about this new Instagram, Snapchat update?
I am all about that because there's sometimes where I just want to post a cute selfie or post something fun on Instagram, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to mess up my aesthetic. So I think this is absolutely perfect.
Okay. I'm interested in seeing how like this rolls out, because I think a lot of people, like, you know how when Instagram changed their logo and everyone was so mad, they're like, oh my god, why did they change their logo? But now I love this new logo. I'm like, oh, it's so colorful.
I know it was so ugly to me at first, but then I loved the black and white like on the inside. So
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, so let's go into our lightning round. So, this part of our interview is where I'm going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. And remember, this is going to be keeping in line with our dreams and drive metaphor. So, I'm going to be giving you the gear shifts in a car. Okay?
okay, wait, give me like a second to mentally prepare because I'm so bad at stuff like this. Like I'm a really slow thinker and reactor.
I've done over 30 episodes now, and I've heard it all. So,
Oh gosh. Okay.
all right, park,
Playground.
reverse,
Reverse.
neutral,
On either side.
drive.
A driven person.
All right, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna say really stupid stuff.
All right, and last but not least, if you want to be a dream driver, you need the keys to success. That's always so corny when I say it. But anyway, Maya, tell me three things that you think each, any dream driver needs to have in their toolkit before hitting the road.
Ooh. Um, you definitely need to have that one thing that makes you feel good that you can connect to when you're not feeling motivated. Um, Again, like that for me is my spirituality and the people that I surround myself with. I think that's just so important because it's hard out here to do it by yourself. And I know a lot of creatives feel lonely. So even if you have that relationship with God, that's going to take you far. The second thing is just having some type of purpose. Like, why are you even doing this? If you don't really know why you're doing it, you're going to fail. You're going to give up. It's not going to mean anything to you. And then the last thing is discipline and endurance. Like, do the work even though it's hard. It doesn't matter that it's hard. It's hard for everybody. So you definitely have to be disciplined.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your keys. I think this is probably my favorite part of the podcast. Everyone says something different, and I think maybe what I'm gonna do is maybe I think it would be fun to do a compilation of all the keys that people have told me over these past
Yeah,
episodes. Maybe
that would be so
I
amazing.
can make that a freebie, a content opt in on my website,
Ooh,
right? And get people's
yes,
emails.
strategy. I love it.
All right, thank you so much, Maya. Do you have any parting words for our dream drivers today?
My parting words would be you matter, your story is so important, and don't ever downplay your experiences. And if you want to learn how to build your personal brand from scratch, go to mayaelious.com and there is a free 5-day personal branding course on there for you.
And where can we find you on social?
I am Maya Elious everywhere. I'm Maya Elious _ on Instagram.
All right, thank you so much, Maya.
Thank you.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 35 with Maya. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to her talk about why our stories are important and how we can leverage our stories to help build our brands. If you love today's episode, please share it with a friend. Send this to someone that you think will be inspired and motivated by Maya's words. Each week, I love hearing from you guys about, how each episode has impacted you, how it has inspired you. Just keep sending us feedback. We're on social at Dreams and Drive. You can also email me at Raina@dreamsanddrive.com. I love hearing from you all. This has been so motivating for me as well. 35 episodes in. I remember when, we just launched on January 1st. I didn't think that I would get to this point. So it has just been so fulfilling to see how this podcast is impacting and motivating other people. I just wanted to tell you guys that. Sorry for getting a little sappy here at the end of today's episode. But remember, if you want to join our Dreams and Drive community, all you have to do is go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. Getting our mailing list there, you'll be connected to everything that we're launching pretty soon, including giveaways, our exclusive events, all that good stuff. You guys will be the first to know. Last but not least, for today's show notes, go to dreamsanddrive.com, click on episode 35, and you'll get all of Maya's show notes from today's episode. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and I'll chat with you soon.